Good afternoon to you. 406, it's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. And we are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And we're excited to have with us here in studio from the Erie Zoo, the president and CEO, Melissa Kojancie, and Erie Zoological Society Board Chair, Jeff Beach. Folks, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
So, Rue's been on the show before, but Jeff, you haven't. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Did you come up here in Erie, or are you a transplant in?
I'm a transplant. My wife's from Erie, and I've almost been here my whole life now.
Sure, yeah,
21, but worked as a partner in a CPA firm, accounting firm, and just loved Erie, and so fortunate to be here. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C.
How did you meet your wife?
Spring break in college.
And usually it's that kind of Velcro thing where,
right.
One of the spouses brings the other folks in. You grew up in D.C., huh?
Yeah, Washington, D.C., and I think if I stayed in a major metropolitan area like that, I would have been dead of a heart attack 25 years ago. And in Erie, we don't realize how fortunate we are just to pull up next to our place of work, or we're 10 minutes away from our kids' softball game or volleyball game, and it's very low stress, and I love to hear. It's been very good to me. It's been a good life.
How long have you been involved with the zoo?
Oh, probably 15 years now.
Has it been?
I started as treasurer, and then 3 or 4 years ago, I stepped into the role as chair of the board.
The treasurer. They always make the accountant become the treasurer,
yes,
don't
correct.
they?
Correct.
So, not to peg you or anything, but
right. It's all right.
It's all right.
It's okay.
The zoo, and Rue and I have had this conversation. The zoo is just like one of those things, one of those assets locally that is so near and dear to families for generations in our community. And the fact that it's 100 years old, that is a real testament to it. And one of the things is kind of interesting is that we really benefit from our forebears in this, right? I mean, a city the size of Erie generally wouldn't have this, right, Rue? I mean,
that's correct.
You think about it.
Right. So Erie is very fortunate to have a zoo, especially a zoo the size and quality of what our zoo is. And we hear all the time from visitors that they come and visit and they fall in love. Mm-hmm. They say it's a quaint little zoo and really enjoy their time with us. So it's remarkable, and it's certainly something to celebrate for the 100th year. So why don't we start with that and talk about the special events and things? Mm-hmm. And we mentioned off the air the Glow Wild. So let's start with that. Sure. So Glow Wild, we are so thrilled to bring Glow Wild to Erie. For anyone who might not have heard of Glow Wild quite yet, it is a Chinese lantern festival. And so what that means, so picture yourself at the zoo in the evening, taking an evening stroll throughout the zoo, and there are these beautiful, illuminated, larger-than-life displays of your favorite flora and fauna. For example, we have a 20-foot-tall jellyfish, and we have giraffe and elephants, and all of these beautiful displays throughout the zoo. We decided to bring this to Erie because, especially bringing this in the springtime, because shoulder season events are extremely important for zoos. In the fall, you know that we have Zoo-Boo. Okay. And Zoo-Boo, I think we just celebrated our 35th year of Zoo-Boo, so it's a generational family tradition. And so we're really thinking about what can we do in the springtime? What sort of event, what sort of new community tradition can we start? These lantern festivals are wildly popular at zoos across the country. The company that we're partnering with, the production company, just wrapped up a lantern festival at the Columbus Zoo. They've also done one at Zoo Atlanta, the Bronx Zoo, the National Zoo in D.C.
Have they been doing these like in Japan? I mean, is this something that comes from from Asia there?
Yes. So there's cultural heritage that comes with this. So it tells a great cultural story. So not only do we have these beautiful hand-carved, handcrafted lanterns, but we also have cultural performances. So Han Art produces cultural performances. We have 2 a night, every night that Glow Wild is open. So yeah, it's a great revenue driver for us, a great attendance driver, and that's why it's so popular with zoos.
So is there an extra fee for Glow Wild, or how does this work? Yeah.
Yes, so there's an extra fee. So it's an evening event. There is an extra fee. And this is a profit sharing model with the production company. So little upfront cost to us, and they receive a portion of the ticket price.
Gotcha. So if you are a zoo member, what for a family of 4 to go, what would that be, you think?
You're looking at about, so a member, family of 4, you're looking at just under $100.
Okay. So something to prepare for if you want to see the Glow Wild. And is it a guided tour? How does that all work that way?
No, So we do have time ticketing because we want to make sure that people can come and stroll through and not have to worry about the crowds so much. So we do have a certain number of tickets per time, per night available because we really do want our guests to be able to come and take their time and enjoy all of the lanterns and go back again. The pictures that you take with these is just amazing. So we want to give people that opportunity just to take their time at their own pace and stroll throughout the zoo.
That's tremendous. And how long will it be available for viewing?
So it's happening now through June 15th.
Okay, so 6 weeks left. Wow.
And it's Thursdays through Sundays from 6 to 10 p.m.
And tickets can be bought online or during the zoo during the day, and that way it prevents any build up at the gate. People could come right in quickly and take advantage of the most amount of time.
What's been the reaction so far from your folks?
Everyone loves it, and people are thrilled. So these lantern festivals have been held at Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and people in Erie have had to travel, about 2 hours to go see one of these. And the response we're getting and the feedback about, hey, we don't have to leave Erie to see this. It's fantastic that Erie is having this now. We look at it as an attendance driver for us, but also a great opportunity for people outside of Erie to come to Erie to experience all the fun that Erie has to offer.
That's really something else. And again, it's a special development for this 100th anniversary,
That's
right?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the history of the zoo and its 100 years? You want to jump in on that one, Jeff?
Well, I haven't been around for 100 years.
Right.
Well, I mean, you've seen how, I say some of the biggest changes have been, I think, overall how animal care and exhibitions have changed through the years. And although we're not accredited, we followed the AZA guidelines.
Sure.
When we did this last otter exhibit. And, for example, what was at Rue when we originally did the otter exhibit? What was the ratio of land to water?
So it was about a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you had 100 square feet of land, you'd have 100 basically square feet of water.
Yeah.
For the otters, when we originally built that in the 80s, right?
And then they changed it to...
So now it's 3-to-1 ratio. So as scientists study otters and their natural behaviors, they've learned that otters, back in the 80s when the exhibit was built, that otters loved water, and that's where they wanted to be. Over time, research has shown that otters like water, but they prefer land.
Interesting.
So, over time, the sort of the guidelines have changed, and we're very, very particular about making sure that we maintain those. And so the otters absolutely love their new exhibit. It's 3 times the size that it was before.
Wow.
So that's just, I guess, one example of how the zoo has changed over the last 40 years.
Yeah, and that's impacted the large animals. The polar bear was one example of that, and the giraffe was also a big part of that. And so...
And explain it to the listeners, because not everybody is up on how this affects. They think of Pete and Gladys, from the 70s. The Otis Motors sponsored it back in the day, and so on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for example, with the giraffes, they're very cognizant of how an exhibit has to be designed to prevent any injury to a large hoofed animal like that. So if you have a small pen and a giraffe is forced to turn around and use its knees and its hoofs could wear out unevenly, which causes a problem. And an animal that large, you can't do anything else but put them down if they develop a leg injury.
Right.
So it's kind of typical for all the exhibits. We're trying to make them more natural, more room. But yet, the big change I think has been when you come to the zoo. Most exhibits have the plexiglass front to them, versus the old bars or chains for people to exhibit. I think we've done a good job of making the exhibits, the new exhibits, more cohesive in their look. Right now, we're finishing up the painted dog exhibit. A donor gave us money to redo that exhibit. And so we're finishing that up. And the same with the red panda exhibit. We're redoing that one. Very popular exhibit. So
Sure.
It's mostly been on the exhibit side where we've seen the changes.
Yeah. The what do you call that where the rhinos are in the painted dogs? And all
Kaboka.
that? Kaboka, right? And
Right.
so that was a big deal when that came up, right? And I would imagine for a rhino, you just need a lot of land, right? I mean,
You need a lot of land for a rhino, and I will say that, so we get questions about when are we bringing elephants back?
right?
Right?
Yeah.
So if we talk about land, when it comes to elephants, regulations state that you need to be able to provide 1 acre of land per elephant in their exhibit. And because elephants are social animals, you need to be able to house 3 elephants together.
So you need 3 acres.
3 acres of just yard space.
Wow.
That doesn't include like the holding building and things like that. So for a 15-acre zoo to devote 3 acres to one exhibit, that would be a pretty big stretch for us.
And I think people are knowledgeable to know that the zoo of the 70s with their tiny little, whatever it was, 40 square feet of space for the elephant was just not adequate, even back then, honestly, I mean, we fell in love with those
Correct.
animals, but, changes need to be made. Let's keep going. I'm going to take a quick break here. We're talking to Rue and Jeff from the zoo here. It's their 100th anniversary. And again, so many of us grew up riding the zoo train and the carousel and the Pixie Land and, all the things, the petting zoo. And the big old turtle. How old did that turtle live till?
It was a very long time. Yes.
Stay with us. It's Talk Erie. Talking the Erie Zoo, one of those key lead assets here in Erie County. Rue Kojancie and the board chair, Jeff Beach from the Erie Zoological Society here. Let's get, what comes up often is where are we at with reaccreditation. First off, the organization is called
The Association of Zoos and Aquariums, AZA.
Right. AZA. I always get American Zoological. It's not right. And so we're working our way, going through steps. You have a consultant, right? That is what you're working with.
Yeah, so I work very closely with a mentor from AZA. He and I we have scheduled phone calls, and He's really great to work with and has provided a lot of support. And we're very closely tied to AZA. I say that we dress for the position we want.
Okay.
So
what does that mean?
So that means that we uphold all of the AZA standards to the best of our ability. There are hundreds and hundreds of standards set forth by AZA, and we do our absolute best every day to uphold those as we work our way back to accreditation.
So, what are some of the kind of the key factors of bullet points? What's on your punch list? I guess we should call it that way, like it's a construction project or something. Sure.
So we look at this in two buckets. We look at it as the capital improvements and maintenance that we want to address. That's one bucket. And thanks to Senator Laughlin and Representative Mirsky, they have been huge supporters of the zoo and we've really benefited from their support through different grant opportunities. We've been able to address some of the capital needs. So the capital projects and the maintenance projects, that's one bucket. The other bucket is, and the harder bucket that we're working to fill, is the operational funding bucket. And really that piece is the piece that needs to be in place before we go ahead and apply for reaccreditation.
And, okay, so let's talk to the accountant then. The and Rue and I have had these conversations of like this is a zoo. Can we even say it's chronically underfunded by government? It's actually not funded by government. Is that accurate?
We get we're the lead receiver of the EGRA local the lead asset grants.
Yes,
and then also Pennsylvania in their budget has a line item that all the zoos share.
Okay. And
so,
what do you get from the state for that?
This year, $120,000, and EGRA was
$170.
So,
and what's the zoo's annual budget? I mean, this is public knowledge,
it's between $5 and $6 million.
Okay.
So we have found when we lost.
So we're talking what, 5%?
Yeah. When we lost accreditation, we did some in-depth study and dive, and we come to find out that most zoos get 30 to 40 some percent of their funding from the government. For example, when we had the inspection team from AZA here, the lead team leader was from the Akron Zoo, and I'm having lunch with him. And he's telling me he has a vice president of this and a vice president of that and a vice president of this. I'm like, well, your zoo's not much bigger than ours.
I was going to say, yeah.
And find out, they get a slice of the property tax revenue. Now, they're required to do a certain amount of outreach to the community, which is fine. I mean, we're doing that now also.
Sure.
Or you find out in Pittsburgh, they have the additional 1% sales tax.
I was going to say they have that lead asset tax for
correct.
the
And
stadiums and
Pittsburgh
things.
Zoo gets a huge percentage of that. When I was on vacation one year, I now go to zoos whenever I'm on vacation. And I was out at Tucson a year or two ago and did a behind-the-scene tours of their giraffe exhibit, which was beautiful. And was talking to the young lady and told her my position. And she filled us in to say that, at that time, Tucson did not have a full-time vet. They were coming up for their accreditation inspection. They thought they were going to lose it, but they went out and solicited, got a vote on and got a slice of the county real estate tax. But it barely passed. And so, as part of our long-term funding solution, we've talked about additional real estate tax, the RAD tax, additional sales tax, but given the state of our local economy, that's not going to happen. There's going to be no stomach for that. And so we really needed to secure this additional operational funding. When you look at the accreditation report, that was the main concern of theirs. It had nothing to do with animal care at all. It was really, we had been living hand to mouth for years.
Sure. In fact, if I can make an editorial comment.
Sure.
I remember newspaper articles 25 years ago that city councilmen were actually, celebrating how little that they gave to the zoo.
Right.
I mean, you remember that back in the day?
No, I don't, but it doesn't
surprise me. But, it doesn't surprise you. I mean, there was complaints about we're wasting water, because they saw a pipe, draining into Mill Creek or something crazy. Right. Stuff like that, which it's just irritating at the minimum. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I mean, so what that caused us was deferred maintenance,
Yeah.
and we never realized as a board that we weren't paying our people basically a living wage.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't realize we had certain staff members doing multiple jobs that in AZA's eyes was unacceptable, especially when it came to animal care. And the other thing it caused us to do was, I mean, frankly, we essentially dropped out of AZA. We were not going to any of their annual conferences. There's a directors conference that RU has every 6 months, I believe.
There's every January. Mm-hmm.
Every January. We were not sending anybody to
Because we
that.
didn't have the scratch for the hotel.
So it's like, no wonder we
Yeah.
had issues being accredited. We
Sure.
weren't. I mean, we were participating in their species survival plan program, and we still are. And so it was a combination of those events that really was like, oh wow, you know, take the blinders off. We've got an issue here with ongoing funding. And yeah, there's only so much elasticity we can do with prices and membership in our community.
Certainly.
So, you know, that's when we reached out to Erie Events, knowing what they've done to all the other great assets in Erie, how they've taken them over from the city and turned them into real gems in our community. And they're all Erie people, and they're all, you know, I think for the most part grew up in Erie and have a fondness for the zoo, and they realize how important the zoo is to our community. And so, you know, we've been working with them. It's been we started talking to them in January of 2024. A lot of meetings. Rue and her team have provided them with a lot of information. They've been on site several times. You know, we feel really good about a partnership with them. And you know, we just need some action from the city to essentially say, you know what, it's time to do like we did with the ballpark, like we did with the Warner. You know, let's move this to Erie Events. They can afford to provide us some actual funding. But the other thing is, I mean, they have a lot of expertise in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now we run our accounting system with one bookkeeper. You know, they have additional financial management personnel there that could help us with that also. So it's a good fit financially, it's a good fit, you know, personnel-wise.
So is the concept, and I only have like 30 seconds, but the concept would be that the zoo would become an asset of Erie Events, just like the ballpark, or just like...
Yeah, we would still be our own separate 501c3.
Okay.
We would still have a board.
Okay.
And, you know, RU would still operate the zoo. But, you know, they would provide some funding and some budget oversight. But, you know, we would still be Erie Zoological Society. Money we raised through donations would stay with us and be used for our projects.
So more of a public-private partnership.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That
And,
makes
and
a
they're
lot
a
of
public
sense.
entity. I mean,
They're public, yeah.
They're the convention authority. They go by Erie
Right. Yeah.
Events now.
It's a state authority.
Right.
That folks, even the governor has a seat on that board.
Correct.
Let's take a break here for news. Here we're talking to Rue Kojancie and Zoological Society board chair Jeff Beach, having these important conversations here. In Erie. Glow Wild, I'm playing the Eye of the Tiger as a bumper music. I can't believe that. Beautiful tiger in the Glow Wild lantern exhibit there going on at the zoo weekends until June 15th. Check it out.
What is it?
Fascinating conversation with our friends from the zoo here. President and CEO Melissa Rue Kojancie is with us, along with the Erie Zoological Society's board chair, Jeff Beach. And we're learning about the zoo and maybe a strategic idea to make a partnership with Erie Events. And let's be as specific as we can be about what that would look like as far as partnering with Erie Events. Would they take some operational control, yet you'd still have your organization? I mean, it would be a true partnership. How does this look, you think?
Yeah, we would still maintain our 501c3 separate not-for-profit organizational status. So, people can be comfortable, our members, our donors, any money that has been given to the zoo or will be given to the zoo would stay in the zoo. There would be no, money going elsewhere to any other Erie Events activity. Of course, you would expect if they're going to provide us with a significant amount of funding, they would want to have a look-see and an input on your budget.
Absolutely.
And so we would expect that. They also obviously have great expertise in running a skating rink.
Sure.
The story I've heard, maybe Rue could provide some further insight, but we originally added that skating rink as a way to, during our slow season, keep our employees busy.
Sure.
And
it was a revenue stream, right? I mean, it's supposed to make money.
To make money, but it hasn't.
Okay, it's been a drain, right?
And it's it's tough. I'd say some years we may make money, some years we don't. We don't. I mean, one thing, when you talk about our financial situation, and it's sorry for me being an accountant, but we don't cover any of our depreciation expense. We can't fund.
You count on that to add to cash flow,
right?
Basically,
and we can't fund any of that. So if you looked at our income statement, and say, "My God, you guys lost a lot of money," most of that's the depreciation expense that we can't fund.
Right.
And so when something comes up at the ice rink, and we just had something we had to fix this past year, I mean, we have to absorb that cost. And but again, Erie Events has that expertise in running an ice rink, and they know how to do that. Again, they know how to do maintenance, big projects. Although we have a great maintenance staff, and we have a great horticultural staff that we're very proud of, and I don't think the grounds have looked this good and in a long time. Everything looks great, but they really have no desire to run the zoo. They don't tell the Seawolves how to run the ball team.
Right.
They don't tell the Otters how to run.
That is the model, isn't it? It's almost like you're the team. You're the Otters or the Seawolves. You're the zoo team, and you're going to run that facility that they're basically going to maintain and fund.
Right, and their only requirement is, if you look at all of our other properties, they are top shelf, and we're very proud of them. And the zoo's going to look like that, and you're going to have to. That's going to have to be what you want to do, and we want to do that, and we think it looks pretty darn good now. But there's, if you look around the zoo, there's some roofs that need to be fixed. There's things like that. There's still some deferred maintenance we need to address. But that would be our goal as we team with them and expand the zoo. That expansion is going to be first class. I mean, when Rue came on board, we committed that we were not going to do exhibit unless it's first class exhibit. So if you see that otter exhibit, if you see the primate exhibit, if you see what we're doing with the painted dogs, they look similar, and we're spending the money we need to spend. We are fortunate that during COVID, we did qualify for 2 Paycheck Protection Program loans. And we did qualify for the employment retention credit. That gave us about $1.5 million. Prior to that, we had no reserves.
Wow.
Zero reserves. And so we've used those monies, Joel, to address some of the issues that were brought up by the accreditation. We've been increasing employees' pay. We've been able to get reinvigorated in our attendance at AZA events. And and so much. We're technically not accredited, or we're not accredited, but Rue was just on a committee that went to Washington D.C. to lobby the politicians about zoos in general, and so she's been very well accepted. We're still in the species survival programs that are run by AZA.
Right.
We're getting animals for breeding and vice versa. So we've been spending money on that, but we're now, 4 or 5 years past COVID, those monies are coming to an end.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so this has brought the urgency. Like I said, we talked to them back in January 2024. We need to get this done now.
So, what would be the course of action to doing a formal agreement with Erie Events? Does City Council have to act on this?
Yeah,
I mean, like, what is the status of the zoo?
So
in that
basically, we run the city owns the property.
Okay.
They own the buildings. We run the zoo under a management agreement.
Management agreement, yeah.
And it's a very short, informal agreement. And so the goal would be to have the city turn that property over to Erie Events.
Gotcha.
And then Erie Events would enter into a management agreement with the Erie Zoological Society to run the zoo just like we do now.
Rue, when you testified in front of City Council, what was the reaction that you received?
I think they were taking the information in,
Okay.
absorbing it, and they had questions for us, which we worked very closely with Erie Events to provide responses. And so we've been working with the city to get them the information they need to be able to make the decision.
And the part, I thought part of the AZA concern was some of our back office, or our animal, like the hospital part of the animal treatment area. Are there capital projects that still have to be done, or are they already been completed back in the back office, if you will?
So the veterinary center is also key to us regaining accreditation.
That's what I thought you had told me that. Yeah.
So we have the necessary facilities, but they're tucked throughout the zoo campus. And what we need to do is design a facility that houses all of those components under one roof. And so we have made great strides in that. As you know, we received 2 RACP grants totaling $5 million. So
Okay.
we have half the funding secured.
So it's about $10,000 to just do the veterinary center.
Yeah, $10 million. Yep.
Wow, $10 million. Excuse me. Yeah.
I wish it was 10 grand.
Sorry. Yeah. No. So that again, that's a pretty significant lift for you guys, I would think.
That's right. So we're in the fundraising stage of that right now. If we talk about the different puzzle pieces that are actually lining up right now for the zoo, we have been working tirelessly to effort these puzzle pieces into place. For example, you may have heard that we have been included as within a stakeholder parcel on the CRIS map. So
Right.
having, being included with CRIS could be an absolute game changer for us, because CRIS means that it's a 5-to-1 match. So if we put up $1 million, then we're looking at $5 million or $6 million for the whole.
Yeah, versus the 50-50 with the
Yeah.
RCAP. With the
So,
RCAP.
my understanding is that if they include the zoo, it kind of burns through most of the acreage. Is that accurate or not really?
Not necessarily. I believe the CRIS zone itself for the city is 130 acres
Yeah.
that they can use, and so we are 15.
Okay, you're 15 acres. Gotcha.
We are 15 right now. We would love to expand beyond that, but we are 15 acres right now.
And you can't subdivide just like the critical, so you're not paying for the
Yeah, there's
where the
some-
train goes. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of acreage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
there's some flexibility to that. I don't
Is
quite
there?
understand
Yeah.
it, but there's some.
like the principal footprint of the buildings, right?
Yeah, there's some way to move that around.
Yeah, where would you put this vet center? Where would it go?
So we're in talks with the city that right now,
Yeah.
because there has to be an amendment to the lease in order for us to have certain control of the property where we'd like to have this. There's a really cool component of this where not only would we build the vet center for our needs, but a component of this could be used to fill a need within the community. So the need for high-level imaging, CT imaging for people's pets. Right now, people need to travel to Akron or Pittsburgh to take their pet for high-level imaging. Well, we saw that need, and that is something that we can provide right here in Erie. And not only can we provide that service, but that would also be a pretty unique revenue stream for us.
Right, being a part of that the animal care infrastructure. I mean, you're into animals, but there's so much money in pet care right now, so it makes sense.
And we
Right.
just completed tell about the study we just did with the $25,000.
Right. So we went through the programming stage, planning the adjacencies for what the vet center will look like. So we do have a very well-informed rendering of what the space will look like. And it's been really interesting to work this new component of that CT imaging into this project, because there are very strict biosecurity measures that need to occur, so that, let's say, a dog or a cat is coming in to have a CT done. We have to be very careful to protect our animal collection.
Of course,
we
yeah.
house extremely endangered animals. We want to make sure to protect that. So all of these, really interesting conversations we've had about how to make this something real innovative and unique and safe for all.
Yeah, we wouldn't need to have the vet center completed to regain accreditation.
Okay.
If we have the plans and they see we're going forth with the construction, that will take care of it.
But I've noticed that when we do things like, when we get started early on things around here, it sometimes that back end doesn't get filled in, and so
Right.
we've had issues. Different organizations around town where it's like, oh, I got this big. I ended up having to take out a mortgage to finish my project, and so
Right.
you don't want to get into that
No.
mode.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
You want to have all your money ahead of you.
Correct.
The my understanding too is we mentioned the giraffes, and so. Would you anticipate like a new front end for the zoo, like kind of because you'd go on the other side of that parking lot or use that parking lot, right?
Right. So I will say that, we would absolutely love to bring giraffe back. We know the community wants giraffe back. We would absolutely love to do that. There's a few things we need to button up first before we get there.
Yeah.
But yes, so the idea would be that we would expand the zoo forward, basically into the parking area that is there now to the north of the zoo. And to Jeff's point earlier, giraffe exhibits now need to be designed more of like a long rectangle, because you want to give giraffes more space to walk straight, so that their hooves actually wear naturally the same way that they should when they're walking in the wild. You don't want to have it be a square exhibit, because they will naturally turn one way, wear their hooves, which eventually will cause arthritis and issues like that. So we know that internally within the 15 acres we have now, we don't have the space to do that exhibit justice and the way we want to do it. So we need to be able to expand the zoo forward for that.
Okay, so that might mean a whole new front end,
Right.
which would be kind of cool. I mean, again, we love the classic look of the old Glenwood Zoo, but certainly, times are dictating this. As you go through the 100th anniversary, let's talk about, we've got the Glow Wild is through June here. You're having your Party for the Planet on Saturday, right?
That's
Talk a
right.
little bit about that. Yeah.
So we're really excited to have Party for the Planet again, and it's all about conservation, education, doing things that can protect the environment and ultimately leave a lesser footprint on the earth. So we're excited to bring that back. It is part of our Centennial Saturdays. So one Saturday a month, we are holding a Centennial Saturday, which is linked to another event. So this month it is Party for the Planet. Next month it will be our Equipment Day. And so what that means is for the first 100 guests that come through the gates, they will receive a special surprise, thanks to one of our partners. So it's something fun to add in there. Over the winter, we introduced our winter weekend hours, and that was a lot of fun. I remember saying to the staff, we really haven't had bad winters lately. Let's give this a shot.
You jinxed us.
Meanwhile, the snowplows have
Right.
to descend onto the zoo.
So,
That's funny.
but really, up to this year, we've had pretty mild winters. So
Right.
we were exploring the idea of bringing back open hours during the winter so that our guests can come back and enjoy the zoo in the wintertime. So we did those. We had a great response. We'd love to have better weather, so we're exploring doing that again next year.
How do the animals they don't mind the snow and the cold, do they?
It is pretty amazing. So some of our animals are built for the snow, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So our Amur tiger, she's built for this weather. Our red pandas love the cold weather. But you'd be surprised to find that our lions like to be out in the snow. And there's other animals that like to be out in the snow too. So at the zoo, we are very big on providing the animals choice and control, so they can come out in their yard or they can go back into their holding area when they choose. And so it's really fun to see the animals that you wouldn't expect to be out in the snow choose to be out in the snow.
That's funny.
So yeah, they had a good time, and they love seeing people, especially our orangutans over the winter.
At one point, again, growing up, there were all different kinds of bears. We remember the polar bears. What does it take to have bears?
So if we talk about bringing polar bears, all polar bears are owned by Canada, and there are very, very tight regulations on polar bears.
I believe it.
And because polar bears are marine mammals, the support system you need to have the amount of water space for the exhibit is, really, really incredible.
Yeah.
So you're looking at millions upon millions of dollars to bring polar bears back.
Wow.
Yeah.
How are our orangutans doing?
They are doing very well.
Yeah.
So Dasa, she's a great mom. She's the queen of her domain. We have a really great video out right now on our Facebook page that I love to talk about. And if you hop on there and take a look, it's of Dasa chewing gum. And she chews gum and she blows bubbles. So it just shows you how amazing these animals are. I mean, there's little, I forget how old I was before I learned how to blow a bubble like that. And so it's really fun to watch. I suggest hop on our Facebook and check that out. But it just shows just how intelligent they are and how fun they are.
And you're still, every once in a while, there's still babies being born at the zoo.
That's right.
You got to check those out. And I love when those announcements are out there about, the cats or what have you. Having
So our Lynx kittens.
Yes.
They just turned a year old this spring. And they're doing very well. They'll stay with mom for a little bit longer, and then they'll move on to another zoo to have families of their own. Really cool story with these guys is that both mom and dad were ranked very high genetically. And so when you're talking about managed breeding programs within zoos, it's all about genetics. And so AZA reached out to us at the time, as when we were accredited, reached out to us, and they know we have an excellent Lynx program, and then suggested that we take on this the male and the female. Thankfully for us, they got along quite well. We have two little females, and they're doing great.
I love how she said they got along quite well. Yes,
You never know.
the inevitable happened.
Right.
You never know. Sometimes it doesn't with the animals.
Oh my God. Yeah. And are the lemurs as loud as ever? Or
They
what?
are as loud as ever.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there still
Very loud.
opportunities to sponsor exhibits?
There is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was always fun to see if you recognize anybody on the board.
Yeah.
Last question for our friends from the zoo here. Talk about impact. Share a story that comes to mind about a family or an encounter that you had that really reinforced your mission.
I mean, I can speak I see it every day. As you may remember, I spend a lot of my time at the zoo. I've been at the zoo for 25 years now as a keeper. And so I love doing behind the scenes tours and seeing on a daily basis the impact when little ones, for example, in the rhino barn, rhinos, when you see them out in exhibit, they're big. They're a bit intimidating. You hear these stories about how they don't turn and run, they stand the ground and they charge. So people would come into these behind the scenes tours with this idea of like, these guys are big and scary, and they're very impressive, and you absolutely need to respect them. But to watch as you're talking about how amazing they are, as the rhinos are coming up and interacting with people and lining up so that people can actually touch them and pet them, seeing that shift happen and that spark light about just how amazing the animals are, and just how you can see those people want to help them and want to be able to help them in the wild. And that's exactly what we love about the zoo. And our mission is to educate people and help protect endangered species. So,
Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, I think when we've had friends or families from out of town and have taken them there, just their response of how amazed they are at the zoo we have for a community our size, and how it's just so we have good friends and family from Chicago, and you do anything there, you got to plan like 2 days in advance.
Yeah.
And here, they go to the
Pay
zoo.
for parking.
Pay for parking.
Yeah.
They love to go to the zoo. We've done some behind the scenes tours with them. You're at the zoo in the morning, you're at the beach in the afternoon, and you're getting a ice cream cone 10 minutes later. And so they love visiting here, and we had family and friends from Kentucky before. We had friends in town for the eclipse. And at the zoo, they had a big thing for the eclipse. People were taking notes of how the animals reacted, and we went through there. And it's just really that their reaction is marvelous. How they're so amazed, and it's nice to be so proud of that.
And I love that there's the zoo is inclusive.
Yes.
We have the special Sundays, and
Yes.
Again, everybody gets to go to the zoo. And that's important in this community here, and so
very important, very important. I mean, it's got to be for the disadvantaged, the minorities, our new immigrant population. Yeah. It has to be the number one place, a cultural event they feel the most comfortable at.
Yeah, Yeah, my family grew up having picnics at the park, at the Glenwood Park behind the zoo, and we always would go into the zoo. I mean, it's a part of the DNA of people that grew up in the city.
We received, I had a client when we were raising money for various events and various projects, and donated money, and his comment was, when I was growing up, we didn't always have money to take an out-of-town vacation, and we've spent a lot of time at the zoo, and it's always going to be special in my heart.
Well, that's got to be that impetus and that excitement for you guys to continue to move forward.
Correct.
As you navigate this 100th year. Rue Kojancie, Jeff Beach from the zoo. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
It is 4 minutes in front of 5.